Hello lovely people, and welcome to this Christmas collaboration idea from the amazing Stitchwyck, which a fantastic concept and ambitious as well, wrangling 11 artists for this special 12 days of Christmas collaboration. We each chose one of the True Love's gifts and had the general theme of 1940s Hollywood glamour. I was immediately drawn to Eight Maids and Milking, as I couldn't resist another animal anthropomorphised doll with a cow serving milk drinks. I knew I wanted to use a white base, and I thought the additional colours would be easier, so I chose this Catherine Demue doll that's got a lot of UV damage on the body and a lot of glue staining around the head and face. As usual, we remove the head carefully before snipping the hair as close as possible to the head for easier removal. We also need to remove the ears, as I'm going to be adding my own later on, but these will be saved and you never know when you're going to need them for a future project. I have my trusty forceps with me, and with the help of 100% acetone to loosen the hair and also clean the face, we can really see all of that staining, but it's okay because she's going to receive a fresh paint job anyway. I'm going to be adding some curves to this doll to get a better profile. I want her to be quite curvy, and she's going to get the epoxy sculpt treatment around the hips and thighs. I'll also be adding some around the nose to broaden the bridge and have a nice cowl nose with some curly nostrils as well. Drawn a line on the hip joint to make sure that I still get the full range of motion. I don't need this to be fully moulded all the way up to the hips and around this area because she's going to wear clothing all over it, but I do want it to help fill the clothing out properly. I'm using a plastic clay tool as well as using water to try and smooth the nose down as much as possible, and this handy nail art tool as well, just to kind of create a nice transition point from the existing plastic head and also the nose. I'm trying to do this as much as possible in one pass so that I don't have to wait for that additional drying time. I also added a few more curves up top, and I've covered them here for modesty, as I was a little bit unsure about what YouTube would make of all of this new shape, but luckily in the group chat I was assured it would be okay as she was a doll, so you will see her uncovered in later snapshots. I also created these horns. They're actually stuck onto pins which are now jammed into the head because I'm quite used to moving around the head a lot, and then you end up with all this epoxy sculpt popping off, and just in case I want to remove them later for painting or for putting the hair on, it would be a lot easier. I painted the epoxy sculpt areas with at least 3 coats of acrylic paint as a base before adding very thin layers with my very basic airbrush. It's for nail varnish really, but it's done the trick and given me a pretty good brush free base coat. And I don't have to worry about the legs too much, as I intend this server to be wearing tights. I'm using acrylic here to make sure that it stays nice and secure on the plastic base, and I'm just painting the scalp so that when I do glue on the black hair, it doesn't show any of the white through. For the ears, I've got this really cool faux leather that's perfect for the cow's ears. I had lots of cow images, and very cute, and some cosplay ideas for some inspiration on the shape. And I landed on this idea of folding the ears over to have a nice 3D shape. But first I'm just painting the insides for a pop of colour and some extra details. Before I start painting the face and top part of the body, I just very lightly draw on with a very pale grey pencil the shape of the markings that I want to have on the face and top of the shoulders leading down into the body. And then I go in with painting with black gouache paint. I was really nervous about this part. I just spent all this time getting a nice smooth white finish, and now I was literally going on with a colour that would be extremely hard to take off, but it was way more satisfying than I could have anticipated. The starkness of the black against the white, it was so enjoyable to do, and I actually couldn't resist going even further down the arms and the body as well, even though the main part of her will be completely covered. I first used gouache as it dries flatter, but this actually caused a lot of problems with drying, so I ended up doing the second and third coat with acrylic, which lends its water resistant properties to the original coat of gouache. Once that's fully dry, I give her a couple of coats of varnish and Mr. Super Clear when the weather becomes available. While we're waiting for that weather window, it's time to start on the accessories, one of my favourite bits when it comes to designing a new doll. And I must admit that when I thought of this design, the idea was about the milkshakes was something I was the most excited about. I have these small plastic glasses, perfect for the old style milkshake cups, and I collected together a bunch of different nail art embellishments to help decorate the 4 different flavours: strawberry, vanilla, mint and chocolate, making 2 of each to fit the 8-day theme. I have a lot of foam cloud air dry clay, and I mix these colours until I get the look that I want. And I have to then very carefully smoosh down the clay into the cups before adding a couple of the decorations into the mix itself. I then leave these to dry and turn my attention to the detailing. I have kept back some of the nail art decorations that I'm going to use to pop into the white clay that is going to be the cream topping, and I've also decided to do some little straws. I've used some chopped up wooden toothpicks, and I'm going to first paint them white and then do the classic red swirl. When everything's dry, I gather the completed cups, my straws and the additional embellishments together. I'm then going to use this white clay to first roll it up and create a very nice satisfying swirl to add to the top to be our cream topping. I'm then going to choose a straw and stab it throughout the layers and carefully add some colourful beads and decorations into the clay. They are so cute and I am really happy with how they turned out. I've chosen some simple shoes to decorate. They started out red and I've given them a spray with MSC before painting them, and then I will add at the end some gloss with Mod Podge to give them some shine and make them hardier. I wanted to add this red glitter around the top, and I did this first by just painting the shoe and dipping it in the glitter, but it just didn't work out too well, so I kind of scraped off all the ones that were poking out, and I decided instead to add first small glitter, very, very nice and sparkly, to the edges of the shoe and the heel. And then I'm going to go and add hand by hand the larger, chunkier glitter. And here we have face up time. I've got my soft pastels and my watercolour pencils, and because it took so long and the face is so specifically white and black in areas and I didn't want to make a mess of that, I'm going to be using, certainly initially, this white cotton glove as well. I've never done a face-up before after painting the surface of the doll, and even though I've given the paint coat a varnish, 2 coats of MSC, I'm still quite nervous about how this is going to go. I like to use mostly watercolour pencils to get the effect that I want with eyes, and then tend to use pastels to create the more makeup look. I decided to give her blue eyes as I think these are going to stand out quite well. I try going in quite lightly initially, just trying to get the shapes that I want before I start to add more colour in. And I'm already struggling a little bit to get the more delicate parts of the colour to sit nicely on the eye. Part of this is because I'm trying to get it to show up on a black background, and part of it is that I'm trying to go over the paint layer, and the MSC is not liking the weather at all. It's been raining a lot and it's quite cold, so we're just going to have to do the best that we can. I start strangely this time round with the left eye, and I'm just trying to keep my lines as light as possible as I'm very conscious of scratching the surface of the paint. When I'm relatively happy with the first set of eyes with the shade and shape, I do try and match that on the other side as well. I'm being quite light with the amount of blushing I'm doing on the face. Part of that is just with the paint and the gloss and then the MSC, but I'm just adding some powder to the nose to create a bit more shadow, to break up the white, and a bit of pink to the cheeks as well. But as it's going over the paint, it is struggling quite a lot and it's not holding very well. But luckily I wanted a very minimal look in terms of blush and shading and makeup, because I want the face design to really be the feature, the black and the white, and there is going to be a little bit of an added feature later as well that I want to stand out the most. It's a good opportunity to add a little bit of colour to the ends of the horns, just mixing up some different gradations of brown. I had thought at one point of using lots of different colours and adding lots of jewellery, but I actually wanted to keep her a very simple design. It's at this stage that I also add some black air dry foam clay around the craft wire tail so that you just see the hair poking out, but unfortunately you just couldn't see it on camera at all. I add some additional red to the lips, and again I'm really getting the colour to struggle the way I wanted, and I realised that it actually might be the way that it appears more orange on camera, which might have more to do with the lighting, so you might see me messing around with that quite a lot. I'm using both pencils and pastels, and I'm actually going to try and lift a lot of pigment directly from the pencil by putting some water on the brush. And then also I will finally be using some paint before It's during these stages that I'm staring at the lips and face so much that I realise that one eye is definitely bigger than the other. I worry for a bit on what to do before turning to this amazing and supportive group. I honestly wouldn't have managed so many aspects of the design without them. I decide to redo the eyes by painting over the existing design with gouache paint, and this involved going over both the pupil, the iris and parts of the sclera that I'm happy with, which is the right eye, just in case you liked both, and then repeating the spacing on the left, but this time using black and white to redraw the outside line of the eye to get a better match. And I think I managed this okay, and it's definitely going to push me to practice more without using Now that I'm happy with the eyes, I add some metallic blue to the irises to give more definition, as well as giving her a very dark blue eyeliner line as well. I add a little bit more detail to the lips and also a black dot in the middle just to give her an open-lipped look before I decide to add a little bit more pink to the cheeks just to keep it bringing it out during the MSC layers where it tends to dampen down the pigment. I also add a little bit of pearlescent powder because I can never resist. And now comes time to add the whites on the eye shines, which is my favourite parts of the eyes. It really brings them to life. Now for the extra feature. Eyelashes. One thing I really like about this design is not having to do eyebrows. I am not confident with them at all, but I also decided, partly because of the dual base colour being so contrasting, but also for the Hollywood glam aspect, and if you look at Clouds you can all agree that they have enviable eyelashes, so I'm going to trim down some fake eyelashes to the correct size and use UV resin and light to hold them in place. When I thought the eyes were nerve-wracking, I couldn't have been more wrong. I held my breath, steadied my hands as best I could, and still had to get my face within an inch of the doll. Even though it was nerve-wracking, I'm glad I did it. She looks so adorable. I continued to use a pinhead just to coat the rest of the eye in UV resin to give them that shine before repeating the process with the lips and other eye as well. Since I had the UV resin out, I decided to also add these little black hearts to the back of the shoes. I've got quite a simple set of materials to use, again sticking to that white and black theme. I've got some more faux leather white this time with some black and white satin, and also these stretchy black shiny material. I've already mocked up this satin top into 4 different pieces and also used some glue around the edges to stop that from fraying before cutting it out. But I have also mocked up these simple short shapes, purposely made them quite oversized so they can be made more tailored on the doll shape, which is the benefit of using some stretchy material. So with the satin, I obviously had to be more precise, so I did a pattern using the cling film, tape and cut method, and it's in 4 parts. We have the sleeves, which will be bunched, the bust section, which will also be bunched, and then the torso section, which will remain smooth. I want to essentially make a kind of milkmaid's top, but a little bit more glam. I make the sleeves first, and then once I've ruched up the top parts of the shirt, I can pin it to the straight section that goes over the torso before sewing the sleeves on once it's all placed onto the doll. And here it is, hopefully showing off her lovely curves. And now we can get back to the ears. I'm using Yoo-hoo glue to secure the wires and folds in place. I'm using these really handy clips that I've got for holding patterns together to also pinch these in place before leaving them for 10 minutes. I just check that everything's nice and secure, as I don't intend on actually gluing these in place because the plastic of the doll head will actually pinch the wire quite nicely after I've used my stabbing tool to make appropriate holes in the head. And oh, she's turning out so unbelievably adorably cute. I know they look big, but the hair is going to be around them, so they won't stand out as much. I have created a massive stack of black hair wefts using black wool and PVA glue, and as always we're going to start around the hairline. I usually start at the back and then work my way around to the front, and this depends a lot on the style of hair that you want at the end. I continue to move around the head till I've got a few layers, using small sections to go in between the ears and horns, and then longer sections for around the back of the head and also along the front. I want a side parting, so I've drawn a guideline on with a pastel pencil, and instead of laying this piece down flat as the sections as we have done with the hairline, with the parting you want to add the glue to the section and glue it in the opposite direction to where you want it to end up, and so that when it's dry you actually flip it backwards and you get a nice neat and bouncy parting. I do the one side first, and then I'm going to go around and fill in the hair some more, so that when I'm adding the other side it's already quite dry and strong, and then that way I can really push up that second weft right up against it. This is truly one of those trust the process moments when it comes to doll art and craft. Now that we've left the glue to dry and it's really strong, we can start to style. So, to the salon! Sorry. Wool hair wefts style amazingly well with even just a water and a toothbrush, but to make sure the style holds, I'm also going to use some Stronghold hairspray. I want some soft waves with this look, as she's been very busy and she's not quite as neatly styled as if she was a guest or a performer, so I've decided not to use heat this time. I want some nice curls, so I'm going to use straws that I've kept, foil and hair grips to hold it all in place. She's then going to go off to the side of the table to let this set. I actually leave this overnight to give it the best chance of holding it can have. While the hairstyling takes effect, I now have time for the waistcoat jacket I wanted to make. I've left it and decorating the shorts till now, as I was quite concerned I'd run out of time, and while it wasn't necessary, I'm really pleased that I've got time to make this addition, as I hope it really sets off the whole look. I have this faux white leather that I've cut into a jacket shape, and though I didn't use the jacket design, I have to give credit and a shout out to Poop and Seal, as they share a lot of patterns and designs for free. Their Instagram, where you can find that information, is down in the description, and their jacket design was my first step in creating this particular pattern. I wanted it to be a double-breasted waistcoat with a white satin trim collar, and I ridiculously earlier used some heat, and obviously this was a very bad idea. So initially it was going to be a right crossover left, and now it's a left crossover right. I make sure it fits on the doll with the shirt and make sure it's all nice and snug. Time to see how the curls have held. Not too badly. After some consideration, I decide instead of pinning any of the hairstyle or curls in place, I'm actually going to chop the hair into a nice soft wavy bob, and then going to continue just to use the ears and the horns to keep the fringe and the curls around the face in place. As mentioned before, I'd left the detail on the shorts last to ensure I had time. I think it does make a big difference to the final doll. I have this lovely black trim and added it with some tiny red ribbon to the edges of the shorts, and a design feature that I'd pictured early on was this sequin and bead detail running up the side of each leg. Quite often with big collaborations, especially with deadlines around a specific holiday or time of year, time frames and deadlines are an aspect and an issue. So sometimes it just means that I'm leaving certain features or details till right at the end. I'm really pleased that I had time to add these sequins on. They're really sparkly and they add something a bit to the shorts that I think were quite plain initially. And with that final detail, she's complete. I also made a cowbell with some of the spare epoxy sculpt during the body mod stage, which I painted gold, and I added it with a lace ribbon that's going to be tied onto the shorts. I've also made a little necklace with a bit more lace and a red ribbon. And this small pillbox style hat, I couldn't resist adding a bit of sparkle to the top and some pre-made cow print oven cure clay. I took some advice on the group to where I could actually wedge this into design. I wanted to make some tights or stockings, but time just wasn't on my side, so I borrowed these from an Ever After High doll, and I made this black and gold cigarette girl style tray to hold the milkshakes. I'm so happy with the final look. She's better than I thought she would be, and I'm so glad I didn't just use that black and white as I originally thought. And please welcome the troupe. We have Lemon Kitty making Partridge in a Pear Tree, BonnieWeeDolls making Two Turtledoves, Nelumbo dolls making 3 French hens, Stitchwick Witch making 4 calling gut birds, Heliophobiant making 5 golden rings, Cutencursed making 6 geese a laying, SilverGryphon with 7 swans a swimming, my own as yet unnamed 8 Maids a milking, the Witchcrafting making 9 ladies dancing, Imagination Dream Studios making 10 lords a leaping, Heliophobiant making 11 pipers piping, and finally Diamonds Craft making 12 drummers drumming. Please visit their YouTube and Instagram pages to see more of these absolutely amazing creations, and thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing end of year.